Yes.
Uh, I was talking about my posting to Jaipur last time in command of an armored brigade.
Hmm.
And I must tell you that Jaipur was a very nice and interesting place.
Okay.
We had a very good social system over there. And it's a delightful town. I don't know if you've been there.
I was brought
And
up in Jaipur. I grew up in Jaipur.
well, there you are.
Hmm.
So, so since I was the brigade commander, I had the brigade commander's house. It was at one end of Jaipur on a road that goes to Sikar or someplace.
Okay.
Very big house.
Hmm.
And the previous brigade commander was a person called Brigadier Krishnamurti. And Brigadier Krishnamurti belonged to my old regiment, 16 Light Cavalry. And he was about 2 years senior to me.
Okay.
And I knew him ever since I was a second lieutenant. But by the time I reached Jaipur, he had left on a posting to Iran because we had a military observer group in Iran and he was sent over there with his wife. Now, the second in command of the brigade was a person called Krishan Dev Isar. He was a full colonel. And he also belonged to 16 Cavalry. So it's very amazing that the previous brigade commander was a 16 cavalry officer. Then I was posted as a 16 cavalry officer, and the second in command was also a 16 cavalry officer. So I knew these people very well. K.D. Isar was about 2 years junior to me, a very fine gentleman. And he handed over the brigade to me over a period of 3 or 4 days. And he was being posted to my position in Mizoram as the brigade commander of 73 Mountain Brigade. So I handed over to him whatever I could. He handed over to me.
Okay.
That is the scene. Now, one of the things he told me that in Jaipur there were only 2 brigadiers at that time. Now, of course, it's a full command headquarters. We've got the Army's Southwestern Command over there, it's the offensive command. In those days, there was only an armored brigade and there was a sub area. Now, the sub area is the administrative area, administrating various station military units which existed in Jaipur. And Jaipur is the home of a cavalry regiment, a horse cavalry regiment called 61 Cavalry. The 61 Cavalry is perhaps the only fighting horse cavalry regiment in the world today. They had 2 squadrons of horses. One of those squadrons is in Delhi. They are in Delhi for the purposes of various parades and things that take place in Delhi. And also the president's bodyguard is very closely associated with 61 Cavalry because officers who have commanded 61 Cavalry go to the president's bodyguard as commanders. And so there's a very good association with the president's bodyguard, which means with the president's household also. So 61 Cavalry is a very important unit in Jaipur, and it is a center of all social activity in Jaipur, from the military point of view anyway. Now you may be recollecting that Jaipur has got Maharaja. Sabai Man Singh was the old Maharaja.
Right.
His wife, Gayatri Devi, was one of the most beautiful women in the world. And when I went there, she was in her late 70s, but she was still a very, very good-looking lady, standing tall and straight. She used to play golf with us, and then she used to play polo, and she even introduced a thing called Hathi polo. You know, elephant.
Yeah, I've seen
it. Yeah. So there were a large number of palaces, as you know, in Jaipur. And since we were very close to the so-called ex-royalty, we were very closely associated with all the management and the running of these 4 or 5 large palace. One of them had been converted, 2 or 3 had been converted to hotels. Palace Hotel, for instance, one of the largest in Jaipur, a 5-star hotel. And their management and etc. We got to know them all. And the social system was that the new Maharaja was Lieutenant Colonel Bhavani Singh.
Right.
Lieutenant Colonel Bhavani Singh and I knew each other from the time we were lieutenants and second lieutenants. He was about a year or two junior to me, and he belonged to the 3rd Cavalry. And on a number of occasions, my regiment and his regiment have been posted in the same station, and so we knew each other very well. And he used to come over to my place, I used to go over to his place and all that. So social activity was once with the royalty. The second aspect of social activity there was the military crowd. 61 cavalry and, other military units that happened to be there, plus the armored brigade, plus the sub-area and their officers. We used to socialize quite a lot. Then there was the corporate sector. So the corporate sector were business people, a large number of businesses in Jaipur, and they also were very keen to be friendly with the military people. And so we used to invite them over to various parties and their parties. So they were. Then there was the normal civilian crowd. The civilian crowd wanted to be in with all the good fun and laughter. So they used to join us also. So I must say, it has been a very, very pleasant posting in Jaipur. So when I got my house, etc., my wife was very busy in Surupi was very busy in in Jammu, because while I had been in Mizoram for about 2 years plus, since she was with her parents in Jammu, and she was a brigadier's wife, but she decided to do, since she was a very good teacher, she decided to do her educational degree. She already was a BA, so she became a B.Ed by the time she finished her training there. And many of the people who were learning to be teachers in Jammu used to ask her, why do you want to be a teacher? You're a brigadier's wife, you're laughing, you're well off in life. We are the people trying to earn a living and trying to get degrees and we get jobs. And she made friends with all these people. With the result that we knew a large number of people through her in Jammu, who knew her father, of course. But even I, since I was the damad of Jammu, I was treated extremely well whenever I went there by everybody, including the shopkeepers. Her father, Dr. Barkat Ram, was a very famous surgeon there. And so with the result, and he did a lot of free work for people. So she finished her educational degree. And meanwhile, she started growing mushrooms. So in her house, in Jammu, nobody knew what a mushroom was, the white button mushrooms. So she started growing that in a little shed that was at the back garden of my father-in-law's house. And the 3 children were all young kids by then. Vikram, my son, and Natita, my daughter, and Rutika, the youngest, were told that you have to help with not only the planting, looking after, watering, and then harvesting the mushrooms. So when they did that, she used to pay them, because these used to be sold and money used to come in. So she said, since you're working, so the children learned the art of working and getting paid for it. You see? And they all had bank accounts and they used to put their money inside there and use it for whatever way they pleased, whether they wanted to buy sweets and things, or whether they wanted to buy toys or whatever. And since nobody knew much about mushrooms, my father-in-law used to walk around for his morning walk with a couple of packets of these mushrooms inside his pockets, meet his old friends while they're walking, and say, look, here's a packet for you. They say, what is this? This is a mushroom. Now in Jammu and Srinagar, there is a type of mushroom known as the guchi. I don't know if you know that name. It's a black mushroom. It's about an inch long or 2 inches long. It is only harvested in high altitude areas of Kashmir. And it's an absolute delicacy. Okay? It's exported all over the world, the guchi. So they know about the guchi, but the button white mushroom, something nobody knows about. Anyway, if you say you cook it and put it in your omelette and try it out, with the result that the whole of Jammu started buying these mushrooms from my wife. It became quite well off. In fact, I must inform you that while I was in Mizoram, and it's very difficult communication through about 15 exchanges, army and civil, to go to talk on a landline from Aizawl to Jammu, one end of the country to the other. But when we did get connected, it is mostly hello, 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 and that's it. But all the operators on the exchanges, civil and military, are very interested to hear the conversation.
Okay.
Because here is a man in a remote area who's never seen his wife for a year or two. So the result, even if he didn't get a connection, I'd get rung up at about 1 o'clock at night and say, Brigadier Saab, I've got the connection now, would you like to talk? So she used to invite me for, you take a weekend off or something, and you fly to Delhi, and I'll fly from Jammu to Delhi, and the whole expense is on me. Brigadier was not paid very well.
Okay.
The whole expense, whole expense is on me because I am earning money and let's spend it. So she used to come from Jammu for not 2-3 days, and I used to manage to get leave and with a weekend attached, come to Delhi and have a thing. All she did was carry these packets of mushrooms to the Delhi Defense Colony Market anywhere, and go to any sabzi wala and say, look, here you are. And you should give her the money for it, that's it, because it is very well received in the market. Anyway, since I got my house, she left all that and she came and joined me about a month later in Jaipur and brought my 2 daughters and my son. My son was, he had finished school and he had to go to college. And so since I was a brigade commander in Jaipur and everybody knew me, getting him into a Jaipur college is no problem. So the vacancy was immediately made available. And so I told him that we were trying to get into Delhi University after finishing with modern school. And so he came along and stayed with us since we'd been knocked together for a whole couple of years or so. He came and did his pre-medical, as they call it. He wanted to be a doctor in Jaipur. The result was that, people who leave Delhi University and go outside, they're not accepted back in Delhi University for further studies. It's an interesting point about our education. So anyway, the family got together and we had a very good time in Jaipur. I must tell you a couple of incidents here. One of the incidents was that Indira Gandhi was the prime minister. And I don't think she was very happy with the royalty, ex-royalty. In the earlier days, Siddharth Patel's time, the rulership had come into central India after all the states joined India. But each of these princes and kings used to get a privy purse. It was because the income from their state had been taken away since they lost the control.
Right.
And so Indira Gandhi removed the privy purse also.
Right.
When she was prime minister.
Right.
And I think for some reason, because she was Congress party, and these people mostly joined the Swatantra party or did not join any political party.
Right.
So they were considered opposition. So as far as the Jaipur royalty was concerned, both Gayatri Devi, the ex-queen, and Bhavani Singh, who was the pseudo Maharaja of Jaipur, was shoved into Tihar jail because the jewelry of the Jaipur crown were all positioned in New York. And since it was in New York and it was kept in certain accounts there, which gained money for the family every so many months as interest.
Okay.
And so Indira Gandhi found that out. She said, well, you can't have jewelry placed there without the sanction of the government of India, and you are getting income from there which you have not paid income tax on. So they both shoved into Tihar jail. And of course, there was a lot of sadness and outcry, if you like, in Jaipur, because people had great regard for the Maharaja and the ex-Maharani. And I was there at that time. So after doing about maybe 8 months in Tihar jail, Bhavani was released first. He came into Jaipur. He gave me a call He said, I'm the blinking Maharaja here. And normally when I enter Jaipur, so many people are coming and meeting me and, Kamagani Hukam and, bowing down and all that. But because I've come from Tihar jail, nobody dare come here because they're afraid they might be shoved into jail. So my social life has gone to zero. I said, all right, Babari, you come over to the house, I'll have a party. So on the Saturday, I had a party. I called all the military, the corporate sector, the civilian friends, and everybody. We had about 20, 30 people. And the Maharaja was reintroduced to the social system in his state. And Maharani Jati Devi also came out another few months later. She took a very dim view of Indira Gandhi for what she had done, because maybe that was a little beyond what would be a normal form of relationship, shall I say, between ex Maharajas and the Prime Minister of India. Anyway, that happened. And now, in regard to the military affairs, I've already told you about the uniform. The second thing was that since we were a desert army, we had to do a lot of training in the desert. For that, the brigade used to move its units to Jaisalmer, that is beyond Jodhpur, where the desert area is and where some of our nuclear bombs have been tested, and do exercises every day. Now, for an exercise run by Southern Army, the General Officer Commanding in Chief of Southern Army in Pune at that time was Lieutenant General O.P. Malhotra, who later became the Army Chief. He's from the gunners. And he made an exercise for us with his staff, exercising everybody in Rajasthan. There were two divisions. That is, one division was in Ahmedabad. It was the 11th Division. And this division was commanded by Major General K. Sundarji, who also later became the Army Chief before me. And I was placed under his command as a brigade. But one of my regiments, which was in Jodhpur, the 10th Cavalry, was placed with the enemy. And the enemy was another division, 12th Division in Jodhpur, commanded by Major General Sujit Singh from the Signal Corps. So this one division already in Jodhpur, and he took up positions in the desert outside Jodhpur. And Sundarji's division had to cross this desert, about 70 kilometers, make contact and attack. The idea was to test whether we can cross the desert, 70 kilometers. The whole division comprises some 15,000 men. And then the armored brigade, as I told you earlier, was one regiment was out, but I had two tank regiments and an infantry mechanized battalion plus other troops. So we ourselves were about 4,500 troops. So all of us had to cross the desert from a certain area. Now, we had Vijayanta tanks in my brigade. And I told you in the 71 war, when I was Colonel General of the Armored Division, that Vijayanta tanks, designed by Vickers of UK, were produced in the Avadi factory by India, and therefore an Indian tank, right? But it had certain problems. One of the problems was that I told you this earlier, that the air intake for the engine's cooling system was on the side, on the right side of the tank body. And all the dust from the Rajasthan desert or anywhere going in huge volume inside this, so that the air cleaners were incapable of really cleaning this air before it went into the engine. And with the result, all the engines and the pistons used to get scored. So we knew that the Leyland engine, as it was known as, would not last more than about 35, 40 kilometers in the desert. And in a previous exercise, when my predecessor, Brigadier Krishnamurti, was commanding the brigade, and there was an exercise, the whole brigade came to a halt in 35 kilometers. Therefore, they were not considered capable of long distance marches through the desert. I was told by the Southern Army headquarters that the Chief of Staff was an Armored Corps officer, a man called Salim Caleb, who had he was a 3rd Cavalry officer, and he had got the Mahavir Chakra during the 1965 war. Right? He was a Major General now. And he told me on the phone, he said, I'm sorry, we don't expect your brigade to do more than 35 kilometers. I said, no, who told you that? Let's see when the exercise comes to what we can do. That took a lot of effort to make these tanks run fast. What was the problem? The first problem was that the engine would get seized. About one tank in about 10, engine would seize and it will come to a grinding halt. Second point was that the fuel system was so organized that now these are some technicalities of a tank engine, and this is a British design. Unfortunately, not very good. I think we could have designed better. One of the large petrol tanks was at the bottom of the engine, but the pump that is supposed to pull the petrol up, or the fuel, it's not petrol but diesel, pull the diesel up to put it into the engine was not strong enough to pull it up, with the result that a large amount of petrol was not coming and not available, could not be pulled up. So I had an EME workshop with me. Now this EME workshop and I became very good friends. As a tank man, I must tell you, the Army Service Corps who lifts your tanks and takes them on tank transporters, and the EME who repairs your tanks have to be your close buddies, because without them, you're not going to move. I made very good friends with them. And I told them that I want you to practice changing your engine in the desert of a tank in a matter of hours. Now you have to do that at night. So we practiced them. Bring an engine to a tank, take out the old engine and put the new engine, firstly in daylight, then in night with lights, then at night with no lights. Because once you're in battle in the desert, you can't show that. And they became very, very good. From a time of about 4.5 hours to change an engine, they eventually came down to about 1.5 hours after much practice. Now the question was that if you're advancing in the desert and you've gone about 20, 30 kilometers, how do these guys bring the engines there? So the Army Service Corps, the ASC, had what is known as the Tank Transporter Company. A tank transporter company comprised an excellent tractor vehicle found of this vehicle, 8-wheeled vehicle, huge vehicle, very powerful. I'll give you some of the things. It's so easy to drive that even my wife could drive it very easily. You see? If one of your tires, for instance, got shot up and lost its air, you had a pump system to keep on putting air inside that tire to make it run till you've done your job. Now this had a tractor at the back. I mean, they had a trailer at the back, which again was a large trailer on which your tank would mount, and it pulled the tank across the desert. So I told them that once an exercise starts and you concentrate the tanks at a particular place where we are not supposed to be on the ground with our tracks, and then go ahead and do the exercise with enemy in between trying to stop us. What do these trailers do? And what do the tractors do? So I was told that, well, when you finish the exercise and we know where you're going to finish roughly, we take all the transporters and trailers to that side to pick up your tanks and bring you back home. So I said, all right. Now, each squadron of tanks, a squadron of tanks comprises about 14 tanks. Each squadron of tanks commanded by a major will have 2 tractors behind them, one carrying an engine and one carrying the EME team with its tools to handle the changing of that engine. They could go drive day and night all over the desert. Wherever a tank can go, the Scholar Star truck can go, because he's got huge balloon tires and he doesn't sink in the sand as a normal vehicle would, see? And with that, we trained these people, and eventually I managed to make this brigade during that exercise where General Sundarji was commanding, and I was under him. He said, you make contact with the enemy defenses 70 kilometers away in one night, and we did that. Now I must tell you a few things about the interesting parts of the desert. There's very great shortage of water. Everybody has to be trained. Each man gets just 5 liters of water. Now 5 liters of water, whatever you want to do with it, cooking, washing, bathing, shaving, whatever, toiletries, whatever. That's only there. Now the cookhouse will take 3 or 4 liters of this water because they have to do the cooking. So you're only left with that, and drinking also. So therefore, For instance, I must tell you we all wanted everybody to shave and be, smart during the exercise. So you had to shave with very little bit of water. In those days, there's a brush and soap, and then you shave yourself, and then leave it out in the desert sun, and then when 15 minutes it is dry, and you just push with a finger, clean up the brush because the flakes of snow or soap just disappear from there. And you clean your razors, etc., by a piece of cloth, and that's it. If you go for meals to the officer's mess, which is an tented situation, or lean to against a vehicle, you don't wash hands. You take some fresh sand and you wipe your hand with sand, and you have your way of saving water. And the water gets very hot, not easy to drink that. So you have these, in all your jeeps and vehicles, you have canvas sort of bags, charcoal it's called, fill them with water. And as you drive the hot air, some of the water seeps to the surface and that evaporates, so the water becomes cool. A lot of little interesting points about desert. At night, you make a harbor, make a circle of the squadron tanks, say 14 tanks, and everything's inside the circle. Nobody is permitted to go outside the circle. But if somebody wants to go and have a leak or something outside, he has to take a compass from the point where he starts, take a bearing, right? Then walk so many steps along that bearing, do whatever he has to do, then turn around 180 degrees with the compass and walk back that many steps. Otherwise, he can miss the whole harbor, as we call it. If he misses it by 5 yards, he'll be lost in the desert, never to be found. So everyone had to be trained, because if there's no stars visible, because of dust storms and things like that, you cannot leave the area where you are without a compass and without a bearing. So even at night, if you're going to, let us say you have to travel 70 kilometers, you have to step, the tank is made of iron, so the compass gets affected with that. So you have to have a person march ahead about 30 yards to take the bearing on which you are going. And he has a white cloth on his back. Then the tank is aligned to him. And each tank has got a half a compass inside the driver's seat. So if you get to zero that, then he goes along that at night. So it's not easy. If there are stars available and there's no clouds in the sky to prevent the star, then it's the pole star or something. And everybody has to work out how the pole star is to be recognized, and you keep it in that position because it doesn't move. And then you can go in the distance by keeping it on the position where you are without using this technique. It's a much faster movement. Many people select some ordinary star, but the ordinary stars are moving. The whole sky moves around in a circle around the pole star. See? So there's some of the interesting points in the desert, and I must say that from the jungles of bamboo jungles of Mizoram to come here was a tremendous fillip to our training as to how to survive in these very remote regions of our country, which are huge obstacles for movement and for lack of facilities for you to, I mean, in Mizoram, there are like tracks, and you have to find the hidden tracks that the Mizos use or the Naz use. There's no tracks, it's all sand, and it's a shale, rocky area, and there's moving sand dunes. You have to know how to survive over there. So this was a success, and we to carry 2 extra fuel barrels by 2 brackets at the back of the engine, so that when your fuel finished, since half the fuel was not being pulled by the engine, then you have to stop and refuel. With the result, we managed to move our brigade that 70 kilometers that is required, with much applause all around. But I got a series of very nasty notes from the head of the AAC, Army Service Corps in Delhi, Lieutenant General, and from the head of the EME in Army headquarters, the Director General EME, who's again a Lieutenant General, to say, who the hell are you to fool around with the organizations that have been laid down? So I had to write politely back to them, because they're very senior officers, to say that these rules were laid down World War II, which is dead and gone. This is a new system that we are trying out, which you have to incorporate in your rules. And suggest you look at this carefully. And if it is a success, how to use EME by breaking it up on vehicles which can cross sand dunes and things, and how to repair uh, tanks in the middle of the desert, for instance, is the new system that you'll have to learn. And so eventually, I have to say that today the army has learned all that. It is a very good experience. Now, after spending about maybe a year and a half, I had completed my tenure. There's another point. I got a posting order for my brigade. This was about 1975. I'd come back from Mizoram in early 75, so it was the late 75. I got instructions from Army headquarters that the Armored Brigade will have to move permanently from Jaipur to Jodhpur to be closer to the border. And otherwise, there's a distance of about 10 hours driving time between Jaipur and Jodhpur. And how to go there, your tank transporters will have to be used, and a lot of logistics problem. So I was not very keen to move to Jodhpur. I had been instructed to go to Jodhpur and find out areas where we could temporarily be housed in tents, and in due course of time, suitable accommodation would be constructed for us. I didn't like that idea very much. So it's an interesting question about personal friendships. Now, when my wife, Surupi, was in IT college in Lucknow, she came to know a lot of local families there, became good friends with their children. Now, one of the children was a chap called Rabdi Mathur, and he had become head of the railway engineering group in Ajmer, in Rajasthan, which is near Jaipur. So she said, why don't you ask him if he can do something for you? So that instead of taking your tanks on tank transporters or something all the way from Jaipur to Jodhpur, if he can give you a railway line in your cantonment and a ramp on which your tanks can climb onto flats, then the life will become easier. Okay? So we invited him, gave him a good lunch and a good tea, and took him around the cantonment. And there was a railway line near my cantonment. He said, no problem. No, for you, no money required, no sanctions required. I'll put a branch line from here and give you a ramp. A ramp is a stop for the railway line with the sloping, inclined surface made of mud and stone. The tanks can climb up this, and if railway flats are put onto the ramp, then you can just climb over the railway flats. Let's say there are 10 flats, 20 flats. You go over the flats to the end, and the whole squadron behind you climb down to these, and they're duty located on top of the flats, and the engine can take you wherever you have to go. So in a matter of 2 months, the railways produced siding for me with a ramp. And I wrote to Hamiyatuz, I've got a ramp, I don't have to use the tank transporters. And I'll take my brigade no time straight to Jaisalmer, if you like, which is the limit where the railway line stops. And we can get onto our operation that way. So I pushed them off because while I was there, I didn't want the brigade to move since it was too good a place to leave. After Jaipur is known as the pink city, as you know. Most of the buildings in the town are painted pink. And also it's the Suryavanshi tribe. Suryavanshi, the sun god. So you would have noticed that in Main Street, in the town, in the bazaar, every lamp has got a sun's face on top. And some very good hotels and things around there. Another thing they are very fond of are horses and jewelry, right? Horses, because they're very fond of 61 cavalry. And I recollect that my second in command's wife was a very good painter. His name was, he was a Colonel Man, we used to call him Housey Man. And his wife used to paint very well. So she painted a very beautiful horse's face, with very nice eyes looking at you. And I wanted this frame because she presented it to us. So I took it to the Pink City Bazaar to paint it. I had to put a frame on it. So they put a frame on it. And then he said, you come tomorrow and take it. So I went the next day. And there it was in the shop window for everybody to see. Big crowd collected. They wanted to buy that. So he told me, Brigadier, how much money do you want for this? So I said, the question of money, it's been presented to me, so I'm going to hang it on my wall. I don't want your money. He says, it can go for thousands of, how much you want? You want a couple of legs? Just a painting of a military lady, duly framed. Anyway, that is still in my house here in Delhi. Jaipur sub-area commander was a man called Katoch. He was the younger brother of a person who later became the army vice chief. The elder brother was Kashmir Chand Katoch. He became the vice chief of the army eventually. And this man was Devinder Katoch, the younger brother. He was a sub-area commander. Now, when I was taking over the brigade from Colonel Lisa, who was the second in command, he said, we've got a lot of problems with the sub-area. I said, what's the problem? He says, you know, whenever he's authorized to detail vehicles for various jobs, trucks and jeeps and so on, he always does it from the armored brigade because you're the formation present here rather than from the other station units, you see. So we are a fighting formation and we don't want vehicles to be used for lundy-fundy jobs all over the station, for AAC work or for transport work or whatever work sub-area commander wants to get done. And because then mileages get used and then, you know, we have to change engines and things like that, and that's not good for us. So our fighting capacity goes down. So we are in fact at war with the sub-area headquarters because they keep detailing vehicles from us and we keep avoiding and arguing. So I said, all right, get my jeep outside. I rang up Devinder Katoch. I said, I'm the new brigade commander. This is my name. And may I come and call on you? So please come straight away. Have a cup of coffee. So I drove across to his headquarters. It's a permanent headquarters, very well established. And very beautiful buildings compared to ours. And I went into his office and I think I told him, and he's an elderly person. He must be at least 5 or 6 years older than I am. And he was a brigadier. That was his probably final posting before he retired. And it was my first posting. So I said, look, you're my elder brother. Whatever you order will be done by this brigade. So have no worry about it. You order what you like. We should follow you. You are the Bada Bhai. And we obey. They're very thrilled. He said, Brigadier, so nice to meet you. I'm not going to order anything from your brigade. So, you know, Rishta, it shows that this personal equation between human beings achieves much more than official terms. You can write to people, you can call them dirty names or insist on your rights, and they will keep answering and the files grow bigger and bigger. No action is taken. You see the person and become friends, it's done in a second.